Welcome to Dental Unscripted. Where Mike Dinsio and Paula Quinn break down the practice ownership journey, one episode at a time. Starting up, buying, and running a successful dental practice.
What up, guys? Another episode of Dental Unscripted. My name is Michael Dinsio. We also have Paula Quinn on the show. What's up, Paula?
Hey, what's up?
We are rolling today. I think this is episode 3. So it is podcast day, and Steven knows all about that.
You mean episode 3 for the day?
For the day. We're on episode 3 for the day. And Steven knows all about that. We'll introduce Steven here in a second. But we're super excited to have this episode as we're interviewing and talking to Dental Intelligence, one of the OGs of DI, Vice President of Business Development, happens to be the podcast star of the Growth in Dentistry podcast. So if you're trying to check them out, Paul and I were just on the show. So
check out episode what, Stephen? What episode?
That's a guy.
Like 472 with Michael and Paula. No, but we always like interviewing Dental Intelligence. They have so many great numbers, trends, and things they're looking at, and we use it pretty much every single day. So thanks for being on the show, Steven. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Excited to be on.
Yeah. Well, without further ado, I like to get right into it as we usually lose people after 7 minutes. So let's get hopping. So what is Dental Intel? Let's just start with that, because I feel like not everybody, even though it's on 10,000 dental offices right now, a lot of people don't know what Dental Intel is and what you guys do. So just give us the high level.
Yeah, cool. I like to frame it this way. You know, it wasn't that long ago when dentists were taking film x-rays. My wife's a hygienist, so she went to school and was forced to learn how to do film, even though digital x-rays were on the rise. And, you know, so what's interesting is with getting a diagnostic picture of teeth, there has been so much progress. So if you're a dentist listening and you've been in the market for 20, 30, 40 years, like, you know that the technology's gotten better and better. And even today we've got AI that's looking at the tooth to help us out. And even though there's been all of this progress in getting a really clear picture of the tooth, where is it strong? Where is there decay? Where we need to do some restorations? Man, if you go ask a dentist, hey, where in your business is there decay? Like, if we wanted to take an x-ray of the business and really understand where is it strong and where is there decay, where we probably need to like spend some time as a business leader doing some restorations, a lot of owners, I would say the majority, are still in a position where, man, they may not know. They're looking maybe at new patients. They're maybe looking at collections and production, but they don't have the ability to get a real x-ray of the business. So what is Dental Intelligence? Dental Intelligence is just that. We're looking at Dentrix. We're basically taking an x-ray of Dentrix, EagleSoft Open Dental, and we're showing you graphs, charts, reports to help you understand the health of your business. Where is it strong? And then where might we want to go spend some time doing some restorations so that you can take the best care of your patients and your team and your business profits as well. So that's where we started. Since then, we realized, hey, all of this data exposes action that people need to take. So since inception, when we started with the x-rays, we've now added a bunch of additional actionable tools. So we do the patient reminders and confirmations. We do digital forms. We do digital treatment plans, payment plans, you know, all that kind of stuff on the patient engagement side. But man, our original product is that analytics product that I think people really know us for.
Yeah.
Why? Like, I do get sometimes like, well, can I get that in the dental software?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I'd be like, yeah, can't you look at a tooth and see a brown spot and know that there's some decay? That doesn't mean you know, like, how it's all connected together, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe even another comparison would be that older x-rays to like the newer ability to have AI go highlight things for you and look at all the shades of gray.
Well,
where we're taking all the different reports and comparing them against each other.
I was just going to link it back. We interviewed one of those companies, both of them actually, just more recently, about AI and how X-rays are being kind of, and I'll never forget the story of us finding out that someone was using AI to read an X-ray, and I didn't understand it, of course. So one of our clients was interviewing one of those companies, and I said, Paula, I don't even know how to answer this. So I hand the phone to Paula, and I'm like, Paula, talk to this guy. He needs a software to read an X-ray. Like he's about to spend all this money, and so I handed it to Paula, thinking that she was going to have a way better response than I did, and this was years ago, right? And I hear her say, well, doc, don't you know how to read an X-ray? And I literally spit water out my mouth. And but full circle, here we are on the phone with these guys yesterday, and our minds are blown and how it could really take a practice to the next level. So that's how Dental Intel is with practice management software.
Yep.
Full circle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where do we want to take this, Paul? I mean, we could ask this guy 100 questions about all kinds of things. How do we use Dental Intel to incorporate, and where do we want to take today's episode? Because this thing's a powerhouse of information.
It is. I know I could go on 100 tangents, so you have to watch my episode on their episode.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the biggest things is obviously being a coach. I do see pitfalls, but you all get the luxury of 10,000 practices or more and seeing those pitfalls. So, I've got my thoughts behind it and what I see in the trends, and they're probably not too far off, but I'd love to hear your perspective of, what are some of those pitfalls that you really see in practices with collecting this data?
Yeah, I think that's a common question people have is, hey, you guys are sitting on the data on 10,000 practices. Can you open up the hood a little bit and just tell us what's going on in dentistry? I think a lot of dentists are curious, hey,
100%.
what I'm experiencing the same as everyone else, or do I just suck? Hopefully it's not the you just suck thing. Hopefully it's the same thing as everyone else. But some cases it is. We need to work on that. But I think let's start. There are several trends that I think people are feeling right now. The first one I'll share is this. So one of the things I look at is how successful are we in the average dental practice at growing our patient base year over year? And the last several years, we have flattened out, meaning the average practice last year, I think, grew by 2.1%. This last year was 1.8%. So for every, 1,000 patients you have, active patients, you're only adding 10 or 20, which you just don't feel. You don't feel that in the schedule at all across a whole year. And so then the question becomes, well, why? Why is practice growth flat? I'll tell you, it's not because they're not getting any new patients. That's happening.
So new patients isn't necessarily flat?
No, new patients is pretty normal. That's happening standard. In fact, there's an increased demand for things like Invisalign now more than ever. And so some of those marketing campaigns are working exceptionally well in comparison to the past, but we're still sitting there flat. Now, coming out of COVID, there was a ton of growth, and I think everyone knows why. There was a ton.
Is that where you got to the 2.1 and now we're back down to 1.8?
It's even flatter than it was. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But after COVID, there's a ton of patients that fell off everyone's calendar. So there was for sure a land grab of hey, we can go grab a bunch of patients. That just doesn't exist today. So it's a more competitive market. People are more stable in their job. There's not as much movement. But really what I want to highlight are some of the actual trends that are causing this flatness in our patient growth. So one of those is cancellations and no-shows. I mean, Michael and Paul, I don't know if you guys want to speak to what you're seeing with your clients, but I'm seeing, before COVID, it was the most boring thing to track. Every year it was okay, anywhere between 8 and 11% combined cancellations and no-shows. So for every 10 patients we were scheduling every day, we would have, one of those 10 would cancel or no-show. And if we had 20, it was 2, you get the idea. But now that has almost doubled. I'm seeing between 15 and 18% combined cancellations and no-shows, which is just decimating the schedule. It's making it feel more chaotic, more difficult to people coming in. And then what that also does is that puts more and more people in our unscheduled patients bucket, which means we have to start calling them, we have to start emailing them to like track them down, and they just get into unscheduled la land once they fall off the schedule, right?
Exactly.
So tell me, I'm actually going to hear from you guys.
I was thinking when you said that, like, okay, so 8% before, and now it's 16, 20%.
Yep.
And you feather that with hygiene wages of almost probably 30, 40% higher. So
that's, you live in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, but
not everyone.
but just in, it's true. That's true.
Arizona hasn't moved very much.
So before COVID, it was about the same. It leveled out.
$5 an hour more.
But we are paying our hygienists more. So if we're losing patients, they're falling off in cancellation, it hurts even more on the pocketbook.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, the fact that insurance reimbursement stays the same year after year, I think that if you, aren't coached to increase your UCRs, although we know that there's not a trillion fee-for-service patients out there, coupled with, yes, the increase in wages in general. I mean, hygiene for sure in the Pacific Northwest and other regions, but I think in general, dental assistants, front office, all the way around, even associates, what I got my associate for back in the day, it doesn't, exist any longer. So 100%. And I agree with you. It runs amok up your schedule, and what you're supposed, our last two episodes were on front office, and it goes hand in hand with this, because you have poor front offices up there trying to just get through the day, and all of a sudden 5 people fall off or what, and guess what happened? Well, if they're great, they're going to go straight to, I've got to fill this. So absolutely, it's a train wreck. So
yeah. So one of the things I like to go with this, because I don't want to just give people like, oh, dental intelligence is going to like sound all these alarm bells, but then not help me actually fix the problem. So one of the things that I like to do with people, I'll tell you, there's a dentist. Her name's Dr. Sydney. She's out in Nebraska, and she bought a practice. It's been almost 2 years ago now. She bought since I met her, and she bought the practice thinking, Kate, this is going to be great. It's a retiring doc. He works 3 days a week. He says there's like 4,000 active patients, and he just, stays busy, and this is going to be a great situation for her. And so she buys the business, and she is struggling to keep the schedule full. And one of her friends from dental school, who also owns a practice, she took a while. She worked as an associate for a number of years, but decided she wanted to own her own practice. Said, hey, you should get connected with Dental Intelligence. So we went and installed the tool. She got going with us, and then I got connected with her, because one of our reps was like, this lady needs some help, and I'm going to have Steve go just take a look and see what's going on. So one of my favorite graphs I like to pull up, and it really tells the story of like, if we're not growing with patients, what's really going on. The graph, for those that have never seen it, we'll show on the top side of the graph, we'll show a count of all of your new patients. So if you're getting 50 new patients a month, there'll be a big blue bar that says 50. But what we do that no one else shows you, and you can't get from the practice management software, is on the bottom of that graph, we have a red bar that says, how many patients did we lose this month? And to lose a patient, it's one of two things. Either we've marked them inactive, so we know we lost those ones. You can go pull a report in the practice management to find those. But the other bucket is anyone that has gone 18 months since their last appointment with you guys, we're going to say we lost them. We have stats to show that they are highly, highly unlikely to come back without any activity, or effort from the practice.
We don't have the right number. We don't have the right email. They've gone somewhere else. They're bye-bye.
So we're going to consider them lost. And when I say the industry on average is flat with their growth rate, what that means is when I pull up this graph, almost every time what I see is as many new patients as we're gaining, we are also losing out the back door. Mm-hmm. And in Dr. Sydney's case, she was actually losing more than she was gaining. So the doctor was right. She was getting 15 to 25 new patients a month on a 3-day schedule. That was real. But what the doctor didn't know, and he wasn't trying to like pull a quick one on her, like it's really what he thought. He didn't have a tool telling him what was going on. But what we found was that, for those first 6 months of her working in that practice, some behaviors change. There was a turnover in the front office, and their rescheduling habits went out the window. and they were just bleeding patients, and they were before she ever bought the practice.
Yeah,
go ahead.
we saw this in a pediatric office that we coached through an acquisition, and
Yeah.
he had a ton of cleanup. And one of the things that we track on an acquisition is that retention post close.
Yeah.
So it's like as soon as the close happens and we start seeing a lot of the red pop in that amazing chart, we know that a couple things happening. They're either cleaning up, which is what we're hoping is happening, or the new office or the new doctor is not doing a great job with patient experience, and patients are like asking for their files. So we love that chart, but this particular doctor did a huge cleanup. His patient growth like just way down. And then more recent, but he's been getting like 80 patients a month, pediatric doctor. And so it's like, gosh, he was breaking even, but just more recent, we saw that red line shrink up, and he maintained his new patients, and his patient growth has just exploded. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible to see that when you focus on who's going out the back door, how fast your active patient count pops immediately if you can just tighten up some of these systems.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened with Dr. Cindy. It was like, hey, okay, well, where are we losing all of these patients? And it's pretty simple, guys. Like, I think intuitively, if we were to start having a conversation with the office manager or dentist, they'd be like, yeah, these places. And that is on our new patient exams, we're not always great at rescheduling them. Mm-hmm. The industry average is only 56% on the same day they're scheduling that next appointment. So like the industry average is half of our new patients are getting rescheduled. So we're losing some new patients. We're losing those cancellations and no-shows. Those are big buckets. That's why I brought that up earlier.
No-shows.
A lot of no-shows and cancellations aren't making it back on the schedule. And we make that really obvious in DI. There's like a whole chart for both of them that shows you of all your cancellations, how many have you gotten scheduled back on, and how many are still unscheduled. Mm-hmm. And then hygiene reappointment. This is one where sometimes we're losing. And with Dr. Sidney, we did have to improve that. But just so everyone hears, industry-wide, that's been going up for like 10 plus years. We keep getting better and better and better across the whole industry with hygiene reappointment, which is like, it's like, that's actually very encouraging to see. Yeah. Now, granted, I am only looking at DI customers.
I was just going to say that Dental Intel gives you that resource. So correct. A little skewed there.
I think it is probably skewed. I think the industry, on probably all of my stats, the industry is probably lower, but that has been improving, which I think is a good sign. And I hear other people evangelizing that idea outside of us. So I think that's working. Mm-hmm. And then the last place is people will come in for a limited to see the doc, and they'll get tooth pain fixed. And it's doctor and assistant teams just are not in the habit of double checking for that next future visit. So it's another place where people, pretty easily fall into la la land. So the tactical idea is, how could we use dashboards to make it so the team has one place to look to know if we're going to win or not, right? So that was the question I had for Dr. Sidney. It was literally her. She had no hygiene team. It was just her. She's doing her own hygiene and restorative work. And she had one person in the front office, just two people.
Oh, yeah.
And then it turns out she did not have 4,000 patients. She had like 630. So she could not afford to lose any more patients. Yeah. We had to plug the hole.
There's no way two people can handle 4,000 people anyway.
No, but we at least want to start working 3 days productively, work towards getting, and an assistant. So her, an assistant, and one front office. Work towards getting a hygienist in there so she can start doing more restorative. But we needed to solve the patient problem. So the task was simple. It was 2 things. One, there is a bucket in DI that says unscheduled patients. And that number was really big. And I said, every single day, we want that number to get smaller. If it gets smaller, then we're solving the problem. If it's getting bigger, then we're not solving the problem.
Makes sense.
So logically, here's literally all we have to do. All we have to do on a daily basis between Dr. Sidney, assistant, and front office is make sure we end the day with more people than we had scheduled. So, great. Our schedule's slim today. We only have 5 patients. Let's see if we have some extra time. Let's see if we can end the day with 10 people scheduled in the future. Now, all of a sudden, our unscheduled bucket has gone down by 5. And that you take that and you start to do 5 patients extra a day times by 180 working days.
That's smart.
And all of a sudden she can't even schedule that many. Like the whole problem solved in like 4 months almost, of scheduling.
So wait, can we back that up? Because I think all of us are on the same page. And sometimes I think the folks that are driving to work whenever they're listening to this is what are we talking about? So so essentially what you're saying, first of all, you need the intelligence, no pun intended,
Correct,
to know if you're where you're at, right?
Yep.
And how many's on the schedule. So that's number one, figure that out. Number two is you're saying, say that a little slower. So you're saying if X amount of people are on the schedule today, 518, whatever.
Like
active patients are on the schedule. Just say they're 500. And then at the end of the day, there were 3 cancellations, 1 no-show, and we didn't reappoint a hygiene appointment 3 times also. So whatever. So now that number is going down. But what you're saying is we have to fight that to be more to try to get 501 for the day, essentially.
Correct.
Every single day.
Every single day.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
I
mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's not discussed in the morning huddle. How many patients are scheduled today or forever, and where do we need to land? Right. That's cool.
That is one of the things that I wish was more obvious. Now, what we do in the morning huddle is we do highlight where are my opportunities to schedule these extra patients. Like, where are my easiest opportunities? For example, in the morning huddle, we're showing, and that's why we're showing them, is, hey, you've got 20 patients coming in today. Did you know that there's an additional 12 family members that are associated with the same guarantors that aren't scheduled? So let's just see if there's any, not all of those are going to be slam dunks, but let's see if there's some opportunity there to get some additional family members scheduled while we're seeing one of them. Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you in a hard spot here. Maybe not, because I can promise you've heard this. What about HIPAA? How can we ask Paula's husband? What about HIPAA? What if they're getting a divorce? What if they're not doing well? Am I allowed to mention your husband doesn't have his dental appointment scheduled?
Yeah, I think probably the most practical one is more like a parent-children relationship. Where you're asking about them. But even with
my answer is like, don't you know your patients? Does she just not talk about her husband when she's sitting there in the chair?
Yeah, and then that stuff will come up as well. Where a lot of times, they're I don't know. I don't think that's weird.
Paula, you stumped him.
Oh, I stumped you.
Well,
my response to that is, of course, use common sense.
And obviously don't say, hey, it looks like your husband's unscheduled for his root canal that we diagnosed 6 months ago. Some of that stuff, where it's like you're talking through a treatment plan, probably not.
I feel like most people, especially as a hygienist, when they get in your chair, something's going to come up about their kids, about their spouse, about, if nothing comes up, you don't know them very well, maybe don't say anything. But I feel like if you
don't know, if you want to be extra safe there, then in that situation, you could also just take that list of family members that aren't scheduled, and you can shoot a message and be like, hey, we love seeing your family here in the practice. Notice you were unscheduled. You don't even have to bring up the reason why you noticed they were unscheduled. Want to make sure we get you scheduled to come back, and you can just reach out to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I only stumped you because I get that pushback a bit. You've not heard that?
Yeah, 100%. I've heard that. Yeah, that's a common thing that comes up. I mean, common is in like maybe one in every couple hundred practices.
Yeah. Not every day, but definitely comes up. Yeah.
For sure. Which is good. I'm glad that comes up. It means people are doing their HIPAA training, making sure that they're
right.
Well, let's put an explanation point to this topic of attrition, right? Because I think, just like every dentist every business owner that I always talk to, they always want to talk to me about marketing because I'm supposed to be the marketing specialist. I am. I'm discrediting myself on a podcast, but I am the marketing specialist. Okay. So the first thing that they want to say is, well, I don't got enough new patients.
Yeah.
Every single time. And then I'm like, well, dude, you kind of hired us. You don't have a lot of money. This was a big decision to take on consulting. And so that's an extra expense. And so now, you know, you don't have a lot of money to throw around on marketing. So, and then let's just say you do have a lot of money in marketing. Then it's like, well, what do I spend the money in? Is it pay-per-click? Is it SEO? Is it mailers? Is it ZocDoc? I mean, there's 100 things to do there, right? And then there's all the organic ways. Let's set up a booth at a trade show or some kind of school event, or there's so much effort and money, both effort and money, that goes into getting new patients. And ironically, they're fighting to get all these new patients ultimately to only see 2% growth to your statistic. And so it's a lot of money and a lot of time when really they're just not taking care. They're not tightening down on this topic. So I always say, Paula and I always say, well, before we throw a ton of money into marketing, shouldn't we like fix who's going out the back door, A, and B, by the way, new patient reappointment rates you mentioned was 50%. So you're going to spend a shit ton of money on all these new patients, and then 50% are going to walk right out the door anyways.
The one thing I will give people credit on, because I do have people all the time push back on the new patient reappointment. We were like, no way, we're getting more scheduled back, which I will give people credit. When I jump into the source data, practices do follow up with those new patients. So if I were to take because the reappointment number is same day, how many do we get scheduled for the next one? And the reason why that's important, just so people hear this, is ideally we want to schedule that new patient the same day for the next visit. Because if we don't, then I'm spending dollars as a business owner to have my team members call them, text them, to try to get connected. Because people don't answer their phones these days. So it's like a lot of time to connect with them to finally get them scheduled. So I will say, you know, if I had to do like a finger in the wind, like what percentage of new patients ultimately get scheduled back? Yeah, it's probably more like 65, 70% probably, with, 30, 35% falling through the cracks. And that's just me, like I said, finger in the wind. I've looked at hundreds and hundreds of these, dashboards and clicked on the source data. So people do get some of them back. I'll give them that. But I will still say there are still a good number of new patients that come in for one visit that never come back. So it's an area of growth still for the community.
That's interesting. I also think about how many patients don't get their calls, the new patient calls get picked up. So between the no patient call, between the patients that don't even get phone calls, like they call in and no one even picks up, and then the other 70%, the statistic that we heard from a mailing company that we use is 30% of new patients don't get picked up. So of the 30, okay, so now we got 70 that actually got picked up. What's the conversion there? And then once you funnel all that way down to the people that showed up, how many of those patients don't get reappointed? It's like, oh my God, what is happening? All right. So I think you wanted to share a little bit more about another little trend. Yeah. And I think it's a good one.
Yeah, let's hit this one. So there's really like two big things that I've seen happening in dentistry over the last little while that I think we need to put focus on as an industry that are worth our attention. The second one is an interesting one. It's been almost the last 5 years straight. There's been a decline in two things that doctors care a ton about. The first is patient case acceptance. So it doesn't matter the case size there. I could present $10,000. I could present $500. Are patients saying yes to something? And that number has been coming down. That's the number a lot of doctors like. It's typically, somewhere in that, I think doctors, think, 80, 85% of patients are saying yes to something. And that's coming down into the mid to low 70s, where a patient's saying yes to something. And then the second number is a similar number. It's one I prefer. I think it's a better number.
That's the only one I look at.
And it's treatment dollar case acceptance. So that one's saying, hey, if I'm a dentist and I diagnose $4 million in a year, how much of that dentistry that I'm diagnosing, that I've identified, is actually getting scheduled and completed? So let's say, if for sake of numbers, if your case acceptance there is 25%, that means you're getting $1 million of treatment done. And that number has been coming down year over year as well. So that one, average,
29.
Yeah, average 3 years ago was up in like the mid 40s, 45, 46% of the treatment that was getting diagnosed was getting completed. And now we're down into that 29 to 33% range.
Wow.
That's pretty significant. So for every $1 million of dentistry getting diagnosed, there's $100,000 plus that's not getting done that used to get done just a
So
couple
the
of years
question I always get, on this one is, well, I put multiple treatment plans in,
Yeah.
and no one deletes them,
Right.
Stuff like that. And I'm like, well, that's why it's never 100% to begin with. Like,
Correct.
top treatment acceptance is, maybe 60%. So they're already accounting for, not everybody's going to schedule all same day.
Yep.
You're not getting all acceptance. So I think in this is configured like, that's why top isn't 100%.
Right.
Correct. And
Do you agree with that, or am I?
Totally agree. Another thing I always like to tell people, because that's a common thing that comes up, is like, oh, their mind immediately goes to
yeah.
that number sucks because I do duplicate treatment plans. And that might be true. What really matters to me with this case acceptance on the dollars number is what direction are we trending as an individual dentist, as a practice, and as an industry. And so if I keep behavior the same, let's say my behavior is I do duplicate treatment plans and I don't ever clean any
You
of
should
that up.
at least see it the same.
Correct. The trend will still show up the same way
Exactly.
if it's better or worse.
And
So
which is why Paula throws KPIs at our clients every week.
Every week.
Yeah.
And whatever that is for their practice, the goal is to
Correct.
get it up.
Correct. Yeah. So that's the thing that matters the most here. And so for all 10,000 plus dental intelligence clients, there is the law of large numbers. There's a bunch in there that do duplicate treatment plans. There's a bunch in there that don't. Like, we have roughly the same cohort of types within this metric. And so that's coming down. So the question that becomes, why is that coming down as an industry? And I think there's a couple things that I should highlight that are not concerning, that don't have to do with the patient or the doctor as much. So here's one that I think is good for people to hear. The diagnostic rate. So on every exam we complete, how often are we diagnosing? That has been going up year over year for the last 5 years.
The amount diagnostic per visit.
Well, I'm going to do both. Both have gone up. So one, for every exam I complete, how often am I having a treatment conversation? That's been going up. That one has a lot to do with general dentists expanding what treatments they offer in their practice. So we're seeing more Invisalign happening in general dentists. We're seeing more implants happening in general dentist office. We're seeing more all-on-4 cases happening in general dentistry offices. So that trend of expanding treatment means I'm going to have more clinical conversations than I did in the past because we offer more clinical services. So that has been going up. And then that, though, doesn't necessarily mean case acceptance is going to come down. The number you're getting to, Michael, is the one where there is traditionally an inverse relationship. Meaning, if I present more dollars, in general, my case acceptance on those dollars goes down. So let me share like the common pitfall that doctors make when they're looking at case acceptance metrics. They'll look at the DI benchmarks and they'll be like, oh, sick. I am one of the top diagnosers in the industry. I'm doing comprehensive dentistry. I'm diagnosing like $2,000, like $1,900 per exam. But then they look at their case acceptance and are like, oh, what the F? I'm like one of the worst, quote, worst in the industry. And they'll fail to realize that in general, the best case acceptance, and I'm putting quotes for those that aren't seeing this video, the best dollars case acceptance oftentimes are the ones that are very conservative in diagnosis. So they're only diagnosing $600-700 per visit. And then once we go up to the heavy diagnosers and they're presenting really big cases consistently, you'll see an inverse relationship where their case acceptance on the dollars is lower. So logically, it seems to follow if the industry as a whole is diagnosing more dollars per exam, then we would see some softening in the case acceptance metric. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, yeah.
That's complicated, but I want people to hear it.
I mean,
I get it, but I think there's solutions to all of that.
Correct. Yeah. And I will
So
tell
it's
everyone,
hard for me to say yes. I understand, but I do understand.
You're doing the same thing I'm doing, is asking the question. No, I know people that doesn't happen, where we do expand ourselves clinically and we're able to maintain or even improve diagnosis.
Well,
right?
really great. I don't want to take this too far here, but and maybe make some general statements, but I the question that I have is like, are doctors, if that's the case, are doctors today graduating with less acumen, less training on how to connect with people?
Interesting.
Is it
Well, I don't
school?
think they,
Is
I
it,
don't think they learn it. I don't think they learn it. I think it's just a different generation, in my
well,
opinion.
that's what I
I
was
don't.
going to say, but I didn't want to throw out any dramatic statements. But I'm wondering if the connection isn't there like it used to be, or if it's a communication thing, or if it's a training thing. I don't know. I don't know.
And there could be some of that on we're putting it on the clinical team, but there could be some of that on the patients as
Thank you.
well.
I was about to say that.
The
It takes
patient,
a team. It takes a village. And
millennials and Gen Z, like those patients are starting to be the ones that are there on their own.
And they have money.
They have the job. They have the money. And they're a different breed than, our boomers and Gen X's that we've been working with for the last couple of decades. So.
And don't you think, I mean, some of it's got to be the industry in general. We were talking about this earlier, in my hometown, there were 2 dentists. Now and I came from a very small town. Now there's 30, there's so many choices now. This one, used to, we went to convenience and because this was Dr. Smith, the town dentist. Now it's like, oh, there's this, who takes my insurance, who's convenient. How, how can I schedule online?
I can't get same day treatment. I can't get same day treatment.
It's so much, I think, that goes into it now that, what I love about dental intel is exactly that, the trends. That only tells you what's happening. Doesn't tell you how to fix it. So I think the next step is, Michael and I, say it all the time, and probably every coach out there says it, is, even the best athletes in the world have a coach. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't, your head's in the game. You can't be thinking outside the box, watching your every move, thinking ahead, and then when you're done playing the game, you just want to go chill, so it's like this extra pair of eyes, and dental intel is as well, is, between the two, it's like, okay, now we've diagnosed the trend or what's going on, or are we below or above or average on industry standards? And now it's like, okay, well, what system is broken?
Cool.
Because we just said it takes a whole team. Is it the doctor's delivery, or is it no one following up? Did they already have a bad taste in their mouth when they came in because things didn't go smooth? Now this added to it. Now I just don't trust what you're saying. Now no one follows up with me. You lost me forever. So it's to me, when someone says my cases acceptance is down, what do? I'm like, we've got to look at the whole system. I don't know what part is broke, but something's broke.
It's always the what's wrong and then the why and how, right? And I think on this panel we can figure out the what with dental intel.
We can do it,
and then Paula can figure out the why and how, and the how. I was thinking about. I know we transitioned away from the last topic of attrition, but like cancellations, for example. Well,
no, we were on case acceptance.
I know. I know. I'm going back to the last topic, and I'm thinking like there's like 6 or 7 steps that Paula walks our clients through to prevent a cancellation, right? And so it's like, okay, cancellations are double, but are you doing this touch and text and email, and how often and when, and are you charging, and is it written here? And there's a whole bunch of things that you need to do to fix that, to see that number change. It's the same with case acceptance. It's like, gosh, are you slurring? Are you not using AI to read your x-rays? Do you not even have a screen? Does Nancy Joe not have financial arrangements? I mean, there's 100 reasons why that might be, but it's interesting that it's going down.
Yeah. What I'm hearing too is, for every problem we identify, like there can be changes in patient behavior, which might mean the system we used 10 years ago doesn't work. So we need like a Paula to come in and say, hey, here's a new system that I've proven fixes. You gave the example, Michael, of cancellations and no-shows. Like, it will reduce cancellations and no-shows with your demographic of patients if you'll implement this strategy. And if that's true, then that's probably also true in case acceptance. Hey, maybe there's some changes in patient behavior or finances, etc. And there are probably new systems to be discovered, new ways of doing things where if we implement them, we can kind of buck this trend. So one of the things that I think always piques people. Oh, and one other thing I want to say so that this is very clear, because I don't want people to just like think, oh, well, just because we're diagnosing more, that's why it's going down. The thing I forgot to say was we are only diagnosing on average $200 more with a dentist. So like that slope is really like slow going up, where the treatment dollar acceptance is like steep. You heard me mention it's like 12% less over the course of 2 years. So there's like a much faster downfall than you would expect with this slow little creep up in dollars presented.
Wait, I just want to.
But I love where it went, because it doesn't even matter if it's going down. It's what do we need to change to meet
Correct.
that? You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, okay, what we isn't working anymore. It's doing something else now. Sorry, Michael.
The place I like to go jump with that is, I don't know, Michael, do you want to?
No, I just wanted to make sure I was with you and where you're going. So the amount, because the idea is we're diagnosing more, so case acceptance is going down.
Yeah, that is normal.
But what you're saying is the amount that's gone up is minimal. The amount that's gone down is dramatic.
Correct.
Okay.
The amount's gone up is less than inflation.
Okay.
So for all the, it's small in comparison.
So where were you going to go with that? Because that's it. That is a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah. So then the question becomes like, where and why is that happening? The questions you guys started to ask. And what comes to mind is it's probably been a month and a half, 2 months ago. I was doing a training with a bunch of doctors that work for a 65 location DSO. Mm-hmm. And one of them specifically, Dr. Joseph, I just had him raise their hand and said, hey, okay, who can we go and go through your case acceptance workflow? I like to dive into 3 numbers that really help me understand, at least within this clinical flow, can I start to identify where there might be gaps?
Here we go. Okay, hold on. Are we listening, folks? Because Steven's about to drop 3 things you need to pay attention to right now. Go. This is good.
So the first one I like to see is our diagnostic percentage. And that's super simple. It's every time we complete an exam, how often are we having a clinical conversation? So that one, I like to look by what I call a treatment team. So dentists by themselves, those are typically going to be like limited exams. And then I like to look with dentists with each of their hygienists. Typically there's, for the average dentist, 2 hygienists associated with them. What that allows me to see is are there relationship things? Are there timing things across by themselves and with those hygienists that are changing their diagnostic behavior? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So every time you talk to me, a patient, how many times on percent are you talking to me about restorations or whatever?
Correct.
So that's it. Just 10 patients come in. I talk to 4 of them about fixing teeth.
And I think every dentist would agree, if I'm across my hygienist, assuming there's a relatively similar mix of new patients over time, right? Where if I'm isolating new patients, I typically will have a higher diagnostic rate. But as long as there's a pretty consistent mix across hygienists, I would hope to see a pretty homogeneous or similar diagnostic rate across my hygiene teams that I'm presenting with. Like that's reasonable.
Okay.
And with Dr. Joseph, we jump in and his was like on point. Now, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I have conversations where I'm like, whoa, what's up with like tell me what's different with Sally than it is with
Paula.
Joe, the other hygienist, or Paula, like why is the diagnostic rate so different? And it's interesting to hear doctors talk through, their
That is interesting. What's the average, by the way, on that?
The average, for diagnostic.
Well, you're the one that threw the stat out, so I figured you had it on point.
Wait, you guys have a diagnostic rate for hygiene with dentists? I don't know that.
For just overall restorative, every time we do an exam, limited or what's the other just normal exam you do with
so the treatment case acceptance percentage, is that?
No, just every time they're talking restorative.
Just diagnostic percentage. Are we diagnosing when we bill an exam? And that
is that on Provider Pulse?
That's about 50%. Yeah, that's in Provider Pulse. Yeah.
Oh, I've never really paid attention. I pay attention to the little when you spread the team out, but I've never
Okay,
so that's the first one.
Okay, so the average just summing it up.
It's about 50%.
Is what is that number?
50% of the time you should be talking about restorative average. Okay, what's the next one?
Okay, so that one we want to be about the same. The second number I like to look at is now we isolate just the people we had the restorative conversation with, and I want to know on average how many dollars are we presenting, right? So how big, what's our average treatment plan size basically? And then I do the same thing. I break it down by doctor by themselves and then with both hygienists or that like clinical team. And that can also tell me a story potentially.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, once again, this is one where I hope if I have a really strong clinical plan or like clinical strategy, then it should be pretty much the same with hygienists. And I would hope as a dentist alone, I hope it might be higher because I'm doing limiteds, which I'm like talking about fixing stuff now. And then if I'm a more comprehensive dentist, I'm doing some consults and I'm talking maybe about some bigger cases there too. So doctor by themselves, clinical team.
Okay.
Once again, I hope to see some consistency pretty close there. Now, the place where it often breaks is the number that I said has been going down, where I find opportunity left and right. And that is I look at the same thing, but it's treatment dollar acceptance rate. So it's the one that Paula said she only looks at it. She doesn't look at the patient case. She really wants to know if the dollars I'm presenting, what percentage of those dollars are getting accepted, meaning they're scheduled or completed. That's the one where I almost never, when I break it down to doctor by themselves and with a team, I would hope I would see a high number for everyone, whether it's me by myself or it's with the hygienist or me as a doctor with a treatment coordinator. I would hope to see a system that's delivering consistent results. And I'm telling you, dental practices, it's pretty obvious most of the time, do not have a system that's really making sure that we're getting good outcomes there. So Dr. Joseph, here's the example. Dr. Joseph was like bread and butter, same diagnostic rate, very consistent with how much he's diagnosing. Then we got to the hygienists and it was a 14% difference in treatment dollar case acceptance with one hygienist versus another. And we went and plugged in the actual math. And if he could improve with a lower performing hygienist, like that clinical team, if they got their case acceptance up to match the other hygienist, it was going to be a $24,000 difference in doctor pay. Okay, in doctor pay. Dr. Joseph was like, man, dude, that's a Peloton treadmill and sauna I had my eyes on for a while.
Or just covers my loan payment, Paula.
And he said, and student
and I can look like we track dollar acceptance percentage, but I could think of some of our bigger offices right now doing that study. We could weed out quickly, Paula, because you have that fantastic hygiene program. You could add another element to it per hygienist that's customized to the doctor.
I do look at that.
Yeah. The hygienist and which ones suck with the doctor and which ones are great. That's great. She's already on it. So I think that's really.
I've already shown one. I showed the hygienist. I haven't showed the doctor.
And what's interesting with Dr.
Of course he did.
What's interesting with Dr. Joseph, he very immediate. Actually, here's what's really interesting. It wasn't even Dr. Joseph. The first one to speak was not him. It was a dentist he's really good friends with at another practice. Said, I can tell you, he and the high performing hygienist, those two are like best friends. Like they are in lockstep. And with the other hygienist, they don't have a bad relationship. She's just kind of like Matt, and they just kind of like it's just a job for them when they're presenting together, and they aren't in that same kind of lockstep. And Dr. Joseph kind of started to talk through that. He's like, dude, I had no idea that like kind of that professional relationship that like, hey, people sense our like how we're committed to this. They sense our energy. They sense, how excited are we to be talking about this treatment plan? How excited am I to be in this room with this other coworker of mine? Like there are so many things that can really fuel the patient's sentiment as they're sitting in that chair and we're having that conversation.
I've got a question because we focus so much on the hygiene team. I know some pediatric dentists that would love to know that statistic with dental assistants.
They don't track.
I know.
System.
I'm wondering if that's something that we could maybe work on.
It is possible. So the way
I've tried so many times. How do you do this, Stephen? They won't. I'm like, put your assistants in as providers.
Yeah, so this is
put them in as hygienists.
In order to get it, just so everyone hears, there's no magical solution to data. You have to create data to get this insight. So 100%. What you have to do is you have to put the assistant in or treatment coordinator. If you're like, hey, I want a treatment coordinator as well.
As a producer.
As a provider. And then you add a $0. And it can be whatever code you want it to be. You just add a $0 code to those appointments so that dental intelligence or any report can figure out, like, was that person associated with that appointment? Then if we do that, we can pull that and get it for you. And there are,
I love this. I love this. This is some sophisticated shit here.
No, it is so sophisticated.
If we can just get them doing that morning huddle and those reactivations, and I would feel like the most accomplished consultant in the entire
You're right.
life.
You're so right, Paul. Actually,
Tracking treatment acceptance per hygienist, adding pediatric dental assistants.
You're right.
This is
That's futuristic right now.
This is what 3 dental professional nerds would talk about on a podcast.
Right.
Because the reality is we just next leveled the shit out of all of you guys right now.
If I could just get those Gen Z dental assistants to stay long enough to track them in a practice.
That's so true.
Yeah,
that is so true. We took this thing to let's keep this super simple to we just literally threw it.
I don't know where
we went down that path.
But here's the cool thing, and tying this episode up is with data, you have an opportunity to just get better, right? Whether you're the struggling doctor that can't pay his bills, her bills, and you're trying to get to profit, or trying to get off of that associateship, that you're trying to get your practice to be the primary in your world, or you're the $4 million client that we just signed that's doing production and they're trying to level up to get to a DSO sale. The more you grind on some of these little things and own that, we have clients that own a lot of this stuff, but they don't own some of the stuff we talked about today. You can always own something and level up, but you need.
I was going to say, let's take that even one step further. Whether your perio acceptance is at 14%, 16%, 30%. You don't. If you're 14%, look, I don't ever come in thinking, you guys are garbage. You need to be at 30%. I mean, I would love for everyone to be there, but let's just get you to 16, 17%. It's really just about, in all of these numbers, I think, tightening that system as much as your team is capable of doing.
Yeah.
Because really, at the end of the day, the doctor's the leader, and if he or she is okay because they've got loyal people that are getting the job done, retaining patients, and then you got to go with it. You can't just fire a whole team because we're not at 58% case acceptance or 30% perio acceptance. But what we can do is what can we do better? And that's what I use Dental Intel for, is that huge overview of everything. Listen, when I own my practice, I'm going to say this and I'll be done. I, as a clinician owning a dental practice, so a dentist too, I don't have the front office brain with every report in Dentrix or Open Dental or EagleSoft. This thing right here was my reporting. I didn't have to pull 30 reports. I didn't have to, oh my gosh. It was just, I could open this up and literally run my practice. So when we started consulting, we're like, every practice that we do this with has to have this. It is so hard as a coach to help when you're asking now Mary Jo can you run a new patient report? Can you do this? So if we have someone that we can't use Dental Intel on, like a cloud-based or something, we just remote in. I mean, it's the only thing we can do. We can't ask the poor team to, here, can you run a weekly report? 8 of them for me, 10 of them, whatever.
Hey, we've got Ascend in process right now and Denicon on the way. Just so you know, we've got some.
So you already didn't you already do the engagement part of Ascend or not yet?
Yep, that's rolling, and then we're.
So you're on the analytics.
Yep.
Oh,
That's
Yeah,
great.
right.
I have one client on Ascend. I need it so bad.
Let's go, Stephen. I need you to program that today, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Immediately.
With all the things.
I want it 2 years ago.
Do we have a buy win even? Is it
Yeah,
2025?
we'll have analytics going in Q1 of this next year, and then Denicon might be fast on its heels because it's really similar. The API is very similar to the Dentrix Ascend one, so we think that's going to all accelerate. So I think we'll be.
Okay.
We'll be
All right, guys. Let's just not get crazy here. All right, so
let's get out of here.
guys, thank you so much. I mean, this might be a Dental Unscripted record. We're at 55 minutes. We just did 4 drives to work today, but that's awesome because we just got into so much amazingness. Steven, it's always super fun with your energy and your company. And we really appreciate your partnership at Next Level. It allows us to be incredible coaches. It's the what and then the why, and without one or the other, it's really hard to do our job. So thanks so much for providing this and being one of the leaders, or if not the leader in this space. So without further ado, I guess we'll put an end cap on this. Thank you both for your big brains and your energy today. We'll talk soon. Okay, guys?
All right.
Yes.
See you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Let us know how you like the show. Rate us on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe and follow for more.